So let's start with a brand new session of iOS because it's going to be a new one, maybe the same wine in the new bottle, that's all. So new project, same stuff, only thing it is going to be Swift. So say that view controller Swift example, something, we'll just some name. Okay, first thing you see, a lot of files are missing. One, we have a storyboard, and yes, two storyboard as we know, because one is the launch one and another one the main one. But this time you see that there is a header files on all .h and m files missing. Instead, we end up getting one single file .swift. This is app delegate, and that's the first view controller which is given for you. It's pretty simple to start with. And of course, main view controller. This story doesn't change because storyboard and other concept remains same. So view controller has been mapped and everything looking fine. So as we start with that, we will embed into a navigation controller. That's our standard practice we've been doing. Okay, let's say main. Okay, the view controller .swift. As I said, if you could relate with the previous one, same stuff, but assuming it is a different language, like a Java type or C# type kind of a syntax. Class name, it is maybe a parent class, because the very first one, chances are there it could be what you call protocol or a parent class or super class, whatever it may be. Typically, as we know, it is a from since we are coming from Objective C, it is sure shot. It is inheriting everything from UI view controller. So the view controller class is nothing but a UI view controller itself. Override tells, because this function located in the parent class and it's been overridden here. As I said, let it complete all the previous stuff or whatever it is defined in the parent class, and this is where your additional information is going to come. This is what we have been given. So pretty straightforward. Let's start with the button. As we know, how I can initialize the outlet or IB outlet objects, or how I can listen these actions or maybe the events. So that's where we started. So let me put a button. Sorry, just a button. Maybe we'll also keep a UI label. Label doesn't serve any, we can't change anything, so I'll start with the text field. Say enter whatever, something what I come to my mind. And now we know how to add constraint. So I'm not going to depend much on this one hereafter. I would like to make yourself comfortable with your own constraint, so that you will understand how interface builder or iOS auto resize your view based on the constraint what you provide. So that's one maybe. So something give it. Okay. So there are two requirements. One, we have to have a IB action for this button, so that I can listen the inputs, or maybe that button down events or whatever it is. This one, so that it has to be initialized so that I can get the value whatever been typed. probably I can take these values to the another view controller, so that we'll see how that view controller values could be taken to some other view controller in that way. That we could have probably we'll see if at all we could do it. But first point here is to get used to how I can play around with that. Okay, so let us initialize. Make sure you, there are various ways. I prefer this one, view controller, to initialize an object. The text field has to be initialized in the same way. Insert that your outlet UI text field. So my text field fi something. Okay. So let's see how what kind of a thing it has added over here. One. This @IB outlet tells this object is actually from a interface builder outlet, means from the storyboard. And as usual, object because it's a variable and my text field, and it is of type UI text field because a variable name and its data type. Only difference, there is some exclamatory symbol. Exclamatory symbol. Try this particular part. I'll come a little later because it is slightly to do with that object initialization or something. Probably I'll explain a little more. But at this point, assuming you have some object which you may initialize in runtime or somewhere in the during the execution of code you will initialize, but you want to declare it without initializing. So at this point, this object may be finding a reference, but inner property may be missing. In this case, assuming this object declared here, but unless you connect it with the interface builder, this object cannot be put into use. So that's the obvious understanding, because this particular grayed out dot tells, so this object has been defined in the storyboard and it has been connected. But assuming if it is not connected, for example, I'll also probably go and disconnect it. Where is that? Sorry, storyboard. See this my text field, I'm just going to remove it, remove the reference. See that this IB outlet and the object has been declared, but anywhere in the code, for example, I am trying to access what is typed on the text. Naturally, this particular object cannot fetch any detail because obvious reason that UI text field is not going to have any value unless initialized. But the initialization happens only through the interface builder. So any attempt to access that object, you will end up getting force closure or any kind of error. But you prefer to have it initialized somewhere during the execution of your code, and you still have that declared. Make sure that particular object, if you are unsure about the object is initialized or not, it is inference to have this particular exclamation symbol added on the top of it, and your Xcode, or in this case Swift, will still allow you to go ahead and use that object. But still the condition remains same. It has to be initialized somewhere in your code, then the object inner properties can be accessed. So once I connect with the storyboard and the outlet element, and I'm sure that it has been initialized. So just I'm connecting it back. So just we have fine. Let us define a function. That's one is IB action function, because it's a special type function that event is being listened from a storyboard. So IB action, say enter button pressed, or whatever name you can think of. Okay. Usually we were receiving some sort of object which we are not sure, because what we had ID pointer something was pointing out. Here we have any object. I'm unsure about what is the incoming object it is. So that's, here we call them as any object type. So I have defined a function. So let me connect it. There are various ways. As I click on touch down and trying to search any function being given, yeah, here enter button pressed. Okay. So let's come to view controller. You can write any log. Here the print we are pretty comfortable at this point. So print, say button clicked. You can type. Or when the button clicked, you would like to change the title. Yes, you can change it because that object would have got initialized. So I'm just setting a text. It's going to display something else as I click on the button. So I just prefer a smaller one. Okay, open the bigger one. Constraints. But anyway, let's see the values being coming as I click on enter. The button click, the log is printing, and of course, if you see the value being, the text is having some sort of value. So let me add a constraint. Before, I'd like to make this one as a smaller. So let's add the constraint first. The first one. So pen tool. I'm just selecting. First part, I need to uncheck this one, constraint to margin, and I'm reserving the height 30, and I'm checking adding a 57 pixel distance from top layout guide or view, whatever, both are same because it's going to start from there only, so it doesn't matter for us. From the view, it is 20. I mean, from the leading space 20 pixel distance and the trailing space 20 pixel distance being added, and it's fine. I think height I don't need to because I have subsequent items coming in. Okay, now the constraint added for the text field. For a button, let me add a pin. First point, the distance 39 pixel with respective to the text field top. Left right I don't want to give, instead let me reserve the width and height. So I would like to take it into the center. Instead of pressing from both the leading and trailing distance, I'll see it is complaining me. So let me, with respective to the view, I would like to keep center horizontal. Let's put into the center. So this one you should try quite often to get used to it. It's not something so difficult. It's pretty simple, but your Xcode, as it thinks quite intelligent, it will try to help you. But remember, certain cases, that reset to suggested constraint may not produce the expected result what you are assuming in your mind. It will try to set the constraint, but that won't be matching what you're thinking or what you're trying to achieve. So adding the constraint according to your idea would be the ideal way. So usually the constraint works in such a way, either with our height set it to a constant, and having that as a reference, we try to add a constraint. And typically the pin tool we will be quite using often. So that's fine. So first we'll verify all the constraint being added. Okay, that's what I expected. So when I click on, it does display the content. Okay, fine. So anyway, we could launch a new view controller. Let's see. Segue bot also will complete it in the same way. So when the button is pressed, okay, alert also we'll see. That will be easy. We'll cover that also. Let's put an alert box. When the user click on OK, we'll take the user to this view controller, or if the user cancel, we don't do anything. So to make that, probably I may need a manual segue. So let me add a manual segue. So manual segue, identifier compulsory. So say OK segue, something like that I like. So if you are adding a manual segue, make sure you put an identifier, because otherwise it cannot identify and of course manual segue, in the sense the segue identifier through which we are making the call to have the view controller moving to a new one. So it doesn't have an aviation item. Something I really don't have an idea. Okay. Maybe we'll put a label. In my understanding, giving a primitive UI such as label and text view may not be giving a fixed width is not a good idea. In fact, we are not giving anyway. Our constraints are taken care of, but still, sometimes I've noticed some label you would like to have a fixed width and height and keep it in the center. Suddenly, the label which need to display more content. So sometimes you would end up seeing the text being clipped, having something dot 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 something like that. So that's sometimes happens. Okay, so we have given a label. Probably I'll add a constraint for this as well. I'm reserving the height and adding a pin from all the corners. I would want you to verify sometime view or top layout guide, both are almost same, because nothing is there is no kind of a scroll view which is going to offset anything, so it doesn't matter. But in this case, left right, you just verify the current distance, everything with respective view. So you're adding the constraint for that. Okay, so come to this view controller. When this button is pressed, why don't we create a UI alert controller, which we have already seen in the previous example using Objective C. So variable or constants, maybe constant will do. I'm not going to do much changes. UI alert controller, hope you know this is the way we initialize or declare an object. So it could be initialized UI alert controller and with 3 more kind of constructor, looks like, because it is expecting title, message and style and blah blah blah. So let's see that. Title constructor would require a label, so naturally we have a title with a label asking, sorry, this is again say alert something. Message, you want to go to next view controller. Okay. Preferred style, these are all enums or constants. So UI alert controller style, to identify easily those constants usually defined in the same class, alert. So I just defined a UI alert view controller and I've initialized it, and it is complaining because the variable is unused so far, never used. So we can present this alert, present view controller with a blah blah stuff like a view controller, alert, animated, yes, some sort of kind of elastic effect, handler to handle, probably I'm not going to need anything, nil. So at this point, when I click on the button, it will show me a alert view or alert controller. Of course, OK cancel button I yet to add, but before I would like to check whether it is displaying or not. Yes, we do get it. So the title and the message. So all we need to have a OK cancel button in order to get dismissed. So let's see how I can add it. Of course, it's also going to help me to understand how I can add the block methods, because this alert action is going to have a block. So maybe one more constant. alert. See, okay action. I'll give a name. Okay. Sorry. It's a recommended practice. UI alert action. UI alert action. The constructor. The title of a button is going to be OK. Action style, UI alert action style, UI alert action style. I'll keep default. Handler. Easy way of adding handler is there. Sorry, I'll keep it nil for some time. Then I'll go to the handler part. Because this is a block method, why, what kind of complaint? Okay, it's not being used. So alert, add action, just add them and you're done with that. Remember, it's a constant. Once it's defined, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm not re-initialize anything unless it is remaining as a constant. If at all I try to re-initialize this one alert somewhere, it's a violation. You should not do it. It's complaining. Cannot alert is a let, mean it's a constant. So once defined the constant, there's no way of reinitializing or modifying its value. But in this case, initializing the value set always. So I have a OK action button. So that's been added as an action for a UI alert controller. That's been done. So let me see the OK button is appearing on there or not. Yes, we do have. Let's add a block function. Block function is a normal function. There are various ways, but one of the easiest way. So handle, I'm creating separate function. Handle OK. That incoming type is going to be UI alert action. Sorry, again inspired from. Okay. I have a user-defined function which is having a parameter which is getting a type of UI alert action that you can add as a job done. So anywhere when user click on OK, he'll get a callback over here. So just makes pretty simple. So we added a function. Of course, it is going to always explicitly going to get the instance of the alert action because it is part of that, and of course you can handle the event accordingly. And the OK clicked. If you see that, OK press happens. So this is how you can create a block methods. So block functions, just create a function and call it, quite easy. Fine. Do we have any other thing? Yeah, we need to handle the manual segue so that when the user click on OK, he goes to the other view control. Like that, I'll also finish the cancel button as well. Sorry. This time it is going to be cancel type, and I don't want to handle the event because it's just going to dismiss itself. And add that. Sorry, same name. So we have added cancel as well. Okay, when the user click on OK, we'll have to take the user to what to say that to the next view controller. So that is already available in the view controller. So um, perform segue with identifier. Same stuff. So identifier name, I just need to identify which one, and the object what I'm sending is self or nil. So let me check what's the identifier I gave. This manual segue. Okay, segue. So this is what I have given. Okay, so you just added an event which could be listened as soon as the user click on OK. So cancel will just dismiss and click OK. The user goes to the second view controller. So just a syntax difference, but straight out what we are expecting, we are simply seeing. So the performs. Remember, all the conventions I'm taking from Objective-C still, but the way I handle the object is slightly different. That's the only thing. Because of the obvious reason, we have a different programming language. We just follow the syntax to do the same task what we have so far done. So if you are very well versed at that, whatever we done previously, Swift would be absolutely breeze. In fact, one point of time you will start liking it. So let's see as how it goes. And I'm going to ask you to migrate all the code so far what you have written in Objective-C to Swift as well. So all table view, web service, all blah blah so far what we have done, we'll have to do the same in Swift as well. Okay, so OK has been done. Now let me come to the other view controller. I haven't even added that view controller. So I'll just create a corresponding file. Say new view controller some name. So in the storyboard, I need to tell what type of runtime object it is going to take. It is called new view controller. So new view controller, as usual, we have been given with the required. So this prepare for segue is already been given. So to handle the callback here also I should be having, maybe I'll, okay, it is not there. Anyway, I'll put that code as well. Sorry, what's that? It is prepare for segue. Okay, let me put that also. So if at all I am going to send any text from this view controller to another view controller, we are going to need that. So prepare segue, that one. Okay, so this particular code would be helpful to identify which segue being called or not. So fine. If identifier equals, and I hope I gave it as a, this is always a recommended practice to see. Okay, and remember, we don't need to add a lot of imports hereafter. We don't need to worry. It will automatically identify whatever view controller has been added. You can very well have them initialized. For example, I just created a new view controller. I can very well access them. So it does know about what are all the references being added. So if it is OK segue, we are trying to call something. So let me see what I have in the second view controller. I have a label. Okay, let me initialize the label into a new view controller, right? So my label, whatever. So its outlet element, yes, may or may not be initialized. So safely it has added optional parameters here. Exclamatory symbol. We have exclamatory and question mark. I'll come back to that particular topic slightly little later. So now I have a label. Okay. Also, if at all I may need a help text or a text to handle callbacks. I'm just keeping it, I'm not going to initialize it. So, or if you really want to initialize, you can have a blank value. Whatever way you assume yourself, you can do with that. So, what way it is going to help me? Let me see. My label text. It is going to be okay. So I need to send the value, a text value or string value from this particular view controller. So I'm just knowing with this particular view controller is loaded. So let me get the destination view controller. Again, I'm going to Objective-C format. Let new view CTRL. What do you call new view controller? That is usually obtained from the segue itself, as we know already. That's a destination view controller. It's complaining a couple of things, and initialize an immutable, fix it, and a couple of issues. Point here is I haven't typecasted it. It doesn't know, because destination view controller, it's a type of view controller, but it is not exclusive type of new view controller. So probably as new view controller, I can help it to say, okay, the one what you are going to receive, the view controller is of type new view controller, but still it is complaining. Okay, this object may exist, may not exist. What if you are calling a wrong segue and identify it? Probably you can tell, yes, this object may or may not be present. So this exclamatory symbol gives you a privilege. Okay, you still try to access that particular object which may or may not be existing, because at this point it doesn't know. Only during the execution of the code it will come to know. So that such object is coming is of type same. If it doesn't match, of course you are going to get the error, but at least your Swift will allow you to compile this code. So this exclamatory symbol, I've already told you, any object without initializing the Swift doesn't accept it. Either through constructor you initialize it demands, otherwise you let it have with the starting value. But sometime you may need certain objects, certain properties which is not initialized but still compile it, but during the execution of the code you get the value. So we have already seen the UI label or outlet elements are like that, because outlet element, when the view attached to that, then only it receives the value. Similarly, that segue which is bringing a view controller, but I'm not sure which is a type of a new view controller, but it may not. It should, because as our code has been laid out in that way. So assuming, so it's been used, so new view controller text, sorry, we'll point some my text field. Okay, pointing them. Let's hope if it goes with a value. Okay, anyway, it's going to put a hello world. We got the text. So first point, but in that our previous case we had a header separated, implementation separated. So header only gives a signature of your object so that you can use it. Whether it is initialized or it's not initialized, it's your headache, because the compiler allows you to process by only seeing the header, then takes care of implementation through the synthesizer. That was the execution how Objective-C handled. But the Swift being a kind of high-level language, the object demand, the properties, I may use object property, both the same thing, it just tells the same concept, but in iOS convention, we never say object, we always say property. So any properties being defined, Swift demands it to be initialized. Without initializing, the Swift does not compile them. It doesn't allow you to compile. You would have tested in the playground where we put a certain object without initializing. through the constructor it demanded us to initialize. Otherwise, it won't allow you to proceed. So in this case, sometime I may need to use an object, but during the execution of the code, I will have that initialized. So this one happened in the same way because through which I made a connection with the IB outlet, this object may be initialized. So till that time, it may not be initialized. That's why the exclamatory symbol I said, any point of time. Uh, Apple has a nice explanation about it. You are presented with an object with a wrapper. Say you are given a box. Say you are being given a box having some sort of pastry. So while seeing the box, you are not sure whether there is a pastry inside or not. By seeing the box itself. So it may not be. It may be a spoof also. Somebody will give you a box without a pastry. You may be assuming, hey, I got a pastry. So in that case, how you will handle the situation? This is what it is happening. You are telling, I am bringing that your text field from IB outlet, but you wouldn't have connected it, forgot it. You may have forgotten to connect it. So you may be presented with the empty box without the value put inside. So Swift, in fact, it doesn't want that one. It wants to make sure you present an object with value fully initialized, make sure it is correct. But some extreme condition, you might have to use an object, compile it, but once the code executed, somewhere in one way that object would get initialized. Then no problem. But if it doesn't receive the value, it will break. But at least I am telling, hey, I will initialize. I am giving an assurance. Somewhere I will put the content into my box. So you don't worry. So that's the point. It does try to help you, and it has a even longer story. I'll explain it in any other point of time because it would require a lot of explanation as well. But at least you try to assume it. You are assuring a property which would be initialized in any point of time. So in this case, the segue also bringing a view controller, but you are assuring them that one which is going to be a type of new view controller. But we will come to know only whether it is a new view controller only when the segue is passed. So that's the reason this particular exclamatory symbol came here. Similarly, the a text, while I create an entry, while I declare it, the value I did not initialize here because this value would be sent from one of the source view controller from where it will be assigned. If you know that, see, I'm using it, but in between the segue would have put the value to the a text, and since the value initialized, it will point the value correctly. So this is how it handles, but the concept still remains same. We haven't done even any kind of a changes. Okay, so at least one point we have the text coming from one view controller to another view controller. Okay, if I type something here, how I bring it? That's of course a similar concept which you've already seen, but let me complete with that. So let me put a text field. Okay, I'm putting another text field and a button to unwind a segue, or using Unwind Segue. I'll go back with the payload, whatever the data I have put here. Okay. Fine. So let me add a constraint. First one, need to reserve the height and distance, top level distance I want to with respective to the label which is already present, 45 pixel, and the 2020 trailing and leading space with respective to a view been added. So this constraint is done, and this one we are reserving the width and height, would like to keep it into the center. So top level distance 23 pixel. I'm making sure it is with respect to the text field. Left right I don't want to give. I want to give some sort of center alignment. So let me going to complain. So with respect to the view, I'm going to give center horizontal. Okay, done. So when the user click on this, we'll call the unwind segue and go back. And whatever the data what he has typed, we'll bring it over there and see. So let me initialize them. So new view controller, we have a text field. So saying that my new field something. Okay, and I may need a IB outlet IB action function defined. So let me go back and define it. Or probably I can directly call a unwind segue. So let me do that. Before that, go to the first responder from where it is starting. Define one more function as of type IB action function get callback segue whatever is what we have been doing. So segue, maybe unwind segue will give a name. Unwind segue UI story UI storyboard segue type, and it's going to be this one. Okay, we have unwind segue callback function defined in first responder, mean just before from where it is going to come back. There I have defined it, and let me see that one is recognized while I take it from this guy. Okay, let me see from here. Yeah, here I have and point it. Connect. So whenever the done button is clicked, it is going to come back here. This view control. So unwind segue, it is all still recommended even though it is called by one single function, but I would still recommend this unwind segue. You also give an identifier for that. So back segue. So give a identifier for the segue as well. So it is recommended to put a if conditions again. Sorry, unwind segue with identifier matches okay, then get your what do you call source view controller, because it is coming back. It's a reverse process. So let first build your new view control. Sorry, yes. Okay, new view controller. Okay, from here unbind segue source view controller as new view controller, and I need to help it in another way. It may or may not. So once I receive the value, I can access their properties. So new view controller has a property called what do you call my label. So so not the my label, somewhere I defined here my new field. Whatever the user types, it will bring it back. So my new field. So fine. I'm going to point that to my text field, which is already there in the first view controller. Text, bring it on. Okay, all looks fine. Let's test. It has already been put, and okay. Value is being going here and back. you got the value back. So, so the same concept. So I've used a Swift program to achieve the same thing, which we have seen in the very first beginning of the session. Concept remains same as far as outlet. I mean, storyboard thing, no change at all. But here, the corresponding view controller classes were exclusively written in Swift, and I've done the same using this Swift syntax. In fact, it is pretty simple. Few things you have note because that optional property access plus typecasting. That's maybe a slightly new one you have learned it today. So otherwise, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So we are going to use the core data and other stuff in Swift as well, but it would be quite easy if you have already completed the other Objective-C types. Little tweaks in between somewhere, but most of the point would be remaining same. And we have all the NS objects here also. So, but so far I haven't used it. But most of the NS object, mutable arrays, mutable dictionaries, everything we have, we can very well use them. And by default, your Swift is a mutable array it has, so that also we can put into use. So various ways we can build our application. So using Swift, we are going to continue our iOS development in a slightly different way. I'm going to have a couple of more examples on Swift. So this time I'm planning to give more insight about Swift programming language. Uh, Also, I expect you to complete this example as you have seen this syntax, similar syntax quite much in different programming language. You can easily complete this kind of example. Okay. Tomorrow we will see maybe core data or web service part. Even probably the delegate, like web service delegate something I wrote, how I can do it, protocol, how I can create it. In fact, I gave a simple insight about it already. But how we will create the same here, probably we'll continue. So we'll go ahead with the subsequent examples.